Our next guest helped put the blind sheikh behind bars for life for plotting the 1993 World Trade Center attack, where a number of people were killed. So what parallels does he see between the case against Abdel Rahman and accused Boston bomber Zohar Tsarnaev? Joining us right now, former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy. Good morning to you.
Morning, Steve.
Before we start with the parallels, you disagree a little bit with the way the Department of Justice is handling this. You would not have Mirandized this kid as soon as they did.
Right. Well, you're entitled for at least a certain period of time to determine whether he's an enemy combatant or not, and we haven't gotten to the bottom of that yet. Really, their investigation has just started. We don't know what support network he had. If he fits into the category of the enemy that Congress has defined in authorizing military force, he's an enemy combatant and he can be detained indefinitely.
So you probably would have said, okay, let's call him an enemy combatant and get as much as we can out of him, and then down the road haul him into criminal court.
Yeah, and I would mute my criticism of the administration in that regard. There is no current legal authority to try him any place other than civilian court. You can't try an American citizen by military commission, so
sure.
He had to go to civilian court anyhow.
In the first World Trade Center bombing, the blind sheikh was held responsible for that.
Right.
But he's alive. He didn't wind up with the death penalty because on a federal level, it didn't exist back then.
That's exactly right. We didn't have a federal death penalty for a very long time. The Supreme Court reinstated it, I think, in 1994, but that was the year after the bombing.
Okay, now, with regards to Zohar, you're not optimistic that he's going to wind up getting the needle.
Well, if you're going to have a death penalty, he's the paradigm
absolutely
offender, so he should obviously be a death penalty defendant. But a couple of things. Number one, the death penalty is going to delay this trial for a long time.
Why?
Because it complicates things immensely. There's a whole procedure that has to go on in the federal
government. Just takes longer to get started?
It takes longer to authorize it. It's got to be authorized by the Justice Department, which has a elongated process for it. The defense will be able to make a pitch to the Justice Department not to put it into the case. And then once it's in the case, it sort of heightens the due process and the court scrutiny that the defendant is entitled to. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm trying to get across is two things. Number one, as enraged as we all are now, and I'm not saying that this will be any less enraging, say,
sure.
2 years from now, the passion that we have now will be dissipated somewhat by the time this trial happens.
Absolutely.
And secondly, our track record for getting the death penalty, even in terrorism cases, is not great in federal court. We had the embassy bombers tried here in Manhattan back in 2001, and the jury did not give them the death penalty, even though they killed 220 people.
Sure, and as will be the case, because this is going to be an open court, this guy can turn it into a circus, essentially, by whatever his defense attorney, Miriam Conrad, is going to present. But then, at the same time, Andrew, all around the world, he's going to become the poster boy for jihad.
Yes, well, that does happen. I mean, the history is that these ne'er-do-well, borderline knuckleheads who commit a terrorist atrocity become, they join the pantheon of jihadist heroes. Sure. They become big fundraisers. They become big recruiters. That could happen. But on the upside of this, it looks like the evidence against this guy is pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect it to be a 9-month trial like we had. It'll be much shorter duration, and he'll have a limited soapbox, I think.
Interesting stuff. All right. Andrew McCarthy, former Deputy Assistant U.S. Attorney, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. 20 minutes.